Most people believe that if something truly terrible happens, someone will notice. A scream, a struggle, a body. But what if none of that is required? Between 1997 and 2006, 6 people vanished from a quiet town called Blackrow. No witnesses, no crime scenes, no remains. They didn't disappear into darkness, they disappeared into silence. This is not a story about a killer driven by rage. It's a story about patience, about control, about a man who believed a human mind could be erased and returned to the world incomplete. For years, the town believed nothing had happened. They were wrong. This is an investigation into the people who vanished, the house no one questioned, and the experiment that may never have ended. People like to believe that evil announces itself, that it leaves marks, that it looks chaotic, loud, emotional. In reality, the most dangerous crimes often look ordinary. Blackrow was ordinary, a small town tucked between a river and a highway, the kind of place people passed through without stopping. 14,000 residents, 1 high school, 1 hospital, 1 police station that handled noise complaints more often than violent crime. For decades, nothing truly serious happened there, until people began disappearing. Not all at once, not in a way that felt urgent. The first disappearance happened in the fall of 1997. A 19-year-old college student named Laura Mills failed to come home after her evening shift at a diner on the edge of town. It was raining that night, the kind of steady rain that makes streets shine and muffles sound. Security footage showed Laura leaving the diner just before 11. She walked toward the bus stop, slowed down, then stopped entirely. For several seconds, she stood still. Then she turned around and walked out of frame, alongside someone the camera never captured. There were no signs of a struggle, no screams reported, no witnesses. Her phone was turned off within minutes and was never used again. Police interviewed co-workers, friends, former boyfriends. They checked bus routes and nearby hotels. When nothing surfaced, the case was quietly reclassified as a voluntary disappearance. Laura became a name people mentioned less and less. A year later, a 46-year-old man named Thomas Reed vanished while walking his dog near River Street. The dog returned home alone. Thomas did not. 2 years after that, a 16-year-old boy failed to arrive at a friend's house 3 blocks away from his own. Then a night shift nurse. Then a retired factory worker. 6 disappearances over 9 years. Different ages, different routines, different lives. At the time, no one saw a pattern. The police handled each case independently, and in each investigation, they reached the same conclusion. There was no evidence of a crime. What they did not see, or did not connect, was geography. Every person had last been seen within walking distance of the same stretch of road, River Street. River Street wasn't special, it wasn't dangerous, it wasn't isolated. It was lined with modest homes, most built in the 1960s, each with a small yard and a driveway just wide enough for 1 car. Among them was a 2-story house with pale siding and permanently closed curtains, number 17. The house appeared abandoned, no lights at night, no visitors, no car. But it was not neglected. The lawn was trimmed, the mailbox was emptied, the utilities were paid on time, automatically month after month. City records listed the owner as Nathan Hale. Hale had purchased the property in cash in 1996. No mortgage, no cosigner, no explanation. After 2001, Hale effectively disappeared from official systems. No employment records, no tax filings, no medical history, no travel documents, nothing. Neighbors remembered him vaguely, polite, quiet, unremarkable. He rarely spoke, and when he did, he never held eye contact for long. People recalled that he seemed more interested in listening than talking, more interested in observing. No arguments were reported, no suspicious behavior was reported, and no one reported him missing when he stopped being seen. By the time the sixth disappearance occurred in 2006, the town had learned something dangerous: how to move on. People stopped asking questions. Families quietly relocated. Conversations ended with the same phrase. Nothing ever came of it. Except for one person. Local journalist Ethan Crawford had lived in Blackrow his entire life. He wasn't an outsider looking for a story. He was someone who had watched the town change slowly, almost imperceptibly. Crawford began reviewing old case files while researching an unrelated piece. When he mapped the disappearances, something stood out immediately. Every route passed number 17. The house was never the destination, but it was always nearby. Crawford requested access to the property. He was denied. There was no warrant, no probable cause. The owner had committed no known crime. Months later, Nathan Hale vanished. No moving truck, no goodbye, no record of sale. And just like that, the disappearances stopped. For 3 years, the house remained untouched. The doors stayed locked. The curtains stayed closed. Until 2009, when a routine structural inspection forced the city's hand. What waited beneath the house on River Street would change how the case was understood forever. But by then, it was already too late. When the city inspector reported structural damage beneath the house on River Street, no one expected it to reopen a closed chapter of Blackrow's history. The order was routine. The result was not. Police entered the house 3 years after Nathan Hale had vanished. Inside, everything looked exactly as it had been left. No furniture, no personal photographs, no food in the kitchen. The air was stale, untouched. Nothing suggested violence until they opened the basement door. The stairs led down into darkness. The walls had been reinforced with layered insulation. Soundproofing material lined the concrete. The room had no windows. Bolted directly into the floor and walls were steel chains. Forensic teams identified multiple blood types, none in quantities large enough to indicate a fatal injury. There were strands of hair embedded in the cracks of the concrete, torn fibers from clothing, fingernail marks on the walls. But there were no bodies. The conclusion unsettled even experienced investigators. This was not a place where people were killed. This was a place where people were kept. Hidden inside an air vent, sealed behind a loose panel, investigators found a small metal box. Inside were notebooks, carefully wrapped, preserved. The handwriting was neat, measured, clinical. There were no names, only dates, observations, procedures. They resist less when you speak calmly. Fear escalates unpredictably. Silence is more efficient. Time perception collapses after the third cycle. Nathan Hale did not write like a man driven by anger. He wrote like a technician documenting a process. Page after page described isolation, controlled lighting, the removal of sound, irregular sleep patterns. Hale believed that identity was not fixed, that it could be broken down and reshaped. He did not describe his subjects as victims. He called them variables. Some entries ended abruptly. Others concluded with a repeated phrase: subject returned to environment. Investigators struggled with the implication. Returned where? Alive? Ethan Crawford followed the trail the police could not. Using old residency records, hospital admissions, and name change filings, he identified 3 people who had once lived in Blackrow and then vanished from all official documentation. Each had resurfaced years later in different states. Each had changed their name. Each had spent time in psychiatric care. When Crawford contacted them, 2 refused to speak. The third agreed on the condition that their face and voice never be recorded. Their descriptions matched with disturbing precision. A basement, no windows, no sense of time, a man who never raised his voice. They did not remember being released, only waking up somewhere else. Doctors had diagnosed them with dissociative disorders, severe PTSD, memory fragmentation. None could explain what had happened to them. None had been able to return to a normal life. The FBI concluded that Nathan Hale had not died. There was no evidence of suicide, no body, no financial collapse. He had simply left. The final journal entry supported that theory. The house is no longer required. The method remains. The River Street house was demolished. The basement was sealed under layers of concrete. Officially, the case was closed. No arrests, no trial, no justice. For 10 years, nothing else surfaced. Then, in 2016, in a small town hundreds of miles away, authorities responded to an anonymous tip about an abandoned property scheduled for renovation. Beneath that house, they found a basement, soundproofed walls, chains set into concrete, no bodies. The layout was different, the construction was newer, but the method was the same. The investigation stalled. No suspect was ever named. Somewhere, someone had refined the experiment. The idea that still troubles investigators is not that Nathan Hale escaped, it is that he succeeded. Because the most dangerous criminals are not those who destroy their victims completely. They are the ones who send them back into the world altered, living proof that something was taken that can never be recovered. And if you passed them on the street, you would never know. The town of Blackrow still exists. River Street is quiet. New houses stand where number 17 once was. Nothing there suggests what happened. And that may be the most unsettling part of all, because nothing about this story required secrecy. It required only silence.